best ISO.
Rack it up, I got a bit of the bank to make me a safe house. Shake it up, she got her hands on her knees and she bringing the cake out. Smoke it up, I got some gas, some packs, I'm up in the greenhouse. Ball it up, I'm with the gang, we taking shots off the rebound.
Today, it is my great pleasure to welcome Frank Coles, journalist, explorer, best-selling author of How to Drive a Tank and Other Everyday Tips for the Modern Gentleman. Frank and I met literally on our way to an expedition to the North Pole. We spent 2 weeks in the icy tundra, both of us going, what are we doing here? The next time we see each other, it is the middle of July. We are in the Jordanian desert trying to film with a camera that has to be in air conditioning because it's too hot for the camera.
Okay. Fantastic to see you as well, mate. I'm all right. Yeah, I'm all right. I've got 2 kids and we're separated from the mother and we've all had COVID. So we got that about 7 weeks ago, and we split the childcare in half, so literally 50% of the time. And the kids had just come over to me after about 3-4 days. They both started coming down with symptoms, and then so did my ex over at her house. And then a few days after, I started coming down with them. So I had to isolate them here to start with. And then happily, because we've all had it at the same time, I guess weirdly, as a divorced couple, we kind of still have a one house kind of rule, really. So we're isolated between 2 houses still at this stage. And one of the things that's kind of become apparent as time has gone on is, it hasn't really covered in the media much, is fatigue. There was a guy from Cochrane the other day bemoaning that he'd been living hell for 7 weeks after actually having the infection. And I can say that that's the same with my kids and my ex. My ex is kind of almost fully recovered after 5 weeks. My daughter's pretty good. She's 7. And my son, who would normally do 4 to 5 days of sport a week, is absolutely exhausted after half an hour of either a walk or a gentle kickabout. So,
what was the experience for the adults and what was the experience for the children?
Okay, so we had what I guess would be classed as the neurological symptoms. So rather than just the straightforward temperature and cough, we had a bit of that. But the main thing was aches, pains. Eye pain was a really, really big one. Massive amount of headaches. The loss of taste and smell.
Right.
I only even realised that had gone last week when it came back with a vengeance. I hadn't really noticed it. It must have gone very gradually. But literally, I woke up one morning, got out of bed, and went, "What the hell is this smell?" And it was just normal life. But I just completely.
Okay, I got to ask you: did you either eat anything you wouldn't have eaten, or did you notice that things that you were eating suddenly weren't, what you thought they were? Did you have any experience?
Definitely. Opening the fridge was it felt like a life-threatening experience. It was so things, just normal things like cheese, like not even strong, smelly cheese, but just normal kind of cheddar was just kind of like, oh my god, what the hell is that? And happily, I just kind of went back to. I lived in Thailand for a while, and I went back to eating Thai style, which is very strong flavors and tastes, and that's kind of sorted me out now because everything. I just put it straight up there and went, right, let's just zap the senses, and then we'll get back to normal. Now everything's too bland again.
Yeah.
So yeah. But no, I totally get that.
Let me go back a bit.
Sure.
As I do in the beginning of these interviews, let's talk beginning of the year.
Okay.
What were your expectations or goals for the coming year?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I'd had this leptospirosis infection that I'd picked up in Pakistan the year before. It had been mistreated, and I'd ended up wiped out and exhausted for nearly all of last year. It cost me a lot of money. Effectively couldn't work really. I then started a new kind of semi-permanent job in November, which I'm furloughed from now. But at the same time, I was doing that on the side. I was also learning to trade, which was interesting.
Trade
mainly
stock.
Sports trading.
Oh.
No, mainly sports trading. It's the same principles, exactly the same principles, except I have to work everything around childcare. So for me, the appealing thing about that. Well, the thing is, I'd sat down in January. I literally did an audit of my life for the previous year because certain things had worked, certain things hadn't.
Yeah.
And the thing that had actually made me some money was trading. Because my dad used to be a bookmaker, and he died 20 years ago. But before he died, the internet had kind of was just just building up speed really, and things like Betfair Exchange, which is a kind of trading exchange for gambling markets. had come into existence, and we were toying with that. So I was just bored out of my mind on the sofa, just trying to find anything to do other than watch Netflix. I've watched every box set Under the Sun. I can't watch another TV show.
Okay, I got to ask you, what was your go-to TV series?
Oh man, so many of them. I was literally on the sofa half of last year. So, God.
Anything that you wouldn't usually watch, or that just
Well, I used to work in TV, so I used to have to watch TV as part of my job. So I kind of come to anything. But I did get into RuPaul's Drag Race, which I wouldn't have normally watched.
I love to hear that, because I've gone through the entire thing of Project Runway. But it's hilarious, because there's some part of me that's going, oh, no, girlfriend, do not put those together.
I know, totally. Well, the interesting thing about the RuPaul stuff is, as you know, I've sort of done all that, like that book you mentioned earlier on. That's one book I've done. I've done other books, but that book was interesting from a kind of male perspective, because it was kind of all the kind of stereotypical male skills. And originally it was titled, and this would have been a far more fun book if we'd gone with the original title. It was originally titled The Badass Bible. All I wanted to do was just do literally every badass skill set that every man has ever wanted to do, right? Including most women, because when you get out and do these things, usually there's loads of women there as well, right?
No, I actually go back to the video we made when you were doing the book about hot wiring a car.
Yeah.
Because I'd forgotten how to, and no, I don't steal cars, obviously, but as we know, in the desert, when you're on expedition and things like that, the last thing you want to do is think about whether you lost the keys or not. So you just take the block out. There's
no AAA in the middle of the desert, so it's
exactly.
It's just one of the things that's been really important for me recently is so one of the things that happened last year as well is I haven't told you this, but I actually got a diagnosis of autism towards the end of last year. So autism, like Asperger's type of diagnosis. Now, I've been working with the guy as part of the stuff I was doing abroad, who's working out on the Arabian Peninsula, because they have the Dubai government is now expanding this scheme, which is to say that the way they're treating their own citizens with different skill sets has been wrong. They've been trying to emulate the West, and they're very good at that. But what they realised by looking at their own culture and also Western culture. So with Western culture, they realised that the head of every company in the West has a, how can we put it, neurological divergence. They're different. Yeah. They're not like normal folk, right?
Clearly.
So they're different in one way or another. And one of the things I got from that Bedouin project, or Bedu project, I should say, which I share regularly with these kinds of people, is I can't remember his name, but do you remember there was the guy from the tribe who
the deaf and dumb guy.
But it was kind of, he was part of the culture.
Yes.
And the simple take on it that my friend has taught me is that it's this, it's obviously Dubai and the ruling families there are all Bedu in origin, is that their take on it is that a disability, as we would call it over here, is a gift from God. And it's the tribe's responsibility to work out how to use that in the best way possible. And they have a great phrase for people with different abilities, whether it's physical or neurological, and it's what's the phrase? It's persons of determination. That's it. So instead of calling them disabled, they're called people of determination. That's it. That's the phrase.
All right. But now let's look at this. You guys have gone through COVID. You've gone through everything. It's 4 months later. We're looking at today. How has your life changed? How's your work changing? How's your situation changing?
Well, all of the stuff that I'd started doing, so the trading stock was all sport. I mean, literally. So that was that end. With the day job that I do, which is a kind of head of partnerships thing for my friend who works out in Cyprus, is developing property out there. All of that's suddenly on hiatus because obviously nobody could travel. So it's and nobody knows what's happening economically. So a lot of this was based around high net worth individuals and investing in tourism infrastructure. But if there's no tourism, there's nothing to invest in. So. So all of that's kind of, so in the UK, we have a furlough scheme where employed workers get paid up to 80% of their salary, and it's capped to a certain level. It kind of doesn't quite cover my costs, but it kind of almost does. So
it's regular. It's
Yeah, I mean, they're changing it. They haven't covered everybody. So self-employed are basically shafted. Small business owners are basically shafted.
Right.
After all the sort of, impetus to, be entrepreneurial, they basically just left them in the dirt. They're kind of going to start restricting it from the end of July. So that'll change quite rapidly. I think things after that will change quite rapidly.
And that kind of leads us to today's the first day that you can walk out of lockdown. You're standing at your door. You can do anything you want. You can go anywhere you want. What's the first thing you want?
I want to go up a mountain.
Yeah?
Yeah, I love my mountain. So after all our types of experiences abroad, the one thing I realized was that I'd lived, before I met you, I'd lived in rural Thailand. So I'd lived in a jungle, and I'd lived in a variety of places, and I'd lived in rural France in a variety of places. And then I came back to big cities. I especially remember coming back from the North Pole trip and getting to, it was like 4 planes to get home, but I remember getting to Paris and just sitting in Paris, the airport, Charles de Gaulle, just kind of going, Jesus, all these people. I mean, it was like landing on an alien planet, literally.
Yeah. And the energy and the noise and the
noise, especially, you don't realize, I think, until you've kind of really been exposed to proper wilderness. I mean, the wilderness can be noisy as well, don't get me wrong, but it's a different kind of it's not like, there's always, like, I think with what I notice in Newcastle, where I'm based now, is that there's cars everywhere, but that's stopped recently. So suddenly your anxiety levels actually go down, and it makes me wonder whether the constant roaring of traffic is just simply like the constant underlying roar of a lion or something like that kind of raises everybody's anxiety levels a bit, because you can see it in everybody around here.
There's an effort required to ignore it. I noticed during lockdown here, suddenly a vacuum, a void. And it was so beautiful to me. And maybe it's because you and I actually do better away from cities and civilizations. It was so beautiful to me that I must admit, there's a big part of me that hates the end of lockdown. The noises come back, the vibration has come back, all of this. There's some fear of the way people are reacting, but more than anything, it's just the noise of cars, of things like that. And I think the effort to block those out creates a baseline stress for a lot of people. I know it does for me.
Very much. I mean, I have, with the autism stuff, I have hypersensitivity to sound and to light anyway. So that adds into that. And I've learned to manage that over the years. But as you say, it requires a kind of, it has a cognitive cost, if you like. There's energy expended just doing that.
All right. So do you think there's anything you'll miss about lockdown other than the noise, which we obviously,
Yeah, for me, it's, just the sheer amount of free time to do stuff with my kids. So the whole homeschooling thing, and very quickly it became apparent that all the teachers have been asked to provide lots of homeschooling material in a panic, in a last-minute rush, and close down schools in about 3 days. So we just bombarded with all this stuff, and then it was like, well, there's no way, and there's no point. They're all going to end up being taught at different standards. The teachers will bring them up to speed again when they get back to school. So I kind of knocked that on the head in the first week. And then I kind of figured, well, what can I teach them from the things that I know, from travel, from making TV programs, from writing books, from all that sort of stuff. And so we're doing home ed, I guess, as home education as stuff that I can teach them. So I'm teaching them at the minute, we're doing a whole sort of channel breakdown. They both love YouTube and their gaming and all this. So I'm teaching them how to record different video feeds, how to add narrative, how to add intros, how to create a channel, how to create kind of structured content so you can kind of keep it easy and keep coming back, keep making more without getting bored, and they have to reinvent it every time. So that's just one thing. They're brilliant cooks now. They're really good.
So wait, let me get
bread,
this straight.
cakes, stews.
So you're pimping out your children, basically.
Yeah, sure. Anybody needs a mini chef or a mini videographer?
Dad can relax now.
That would be nice, wouldn't it? But yeah, that would be the main thing, I think. Just that kind of lack of, again, from living in wilderness areas as well, and areas where there's different economies. So we're very fixated on making money and all the rest of it. But it's not really necessary. It's not always the most effective way to get value either. So you might get this where you are. But when I lived in rural France, and I'd heard about this years ago and thought it was a load of nonsense, but they still have a barter economy in parts of it anyway. And people don't realise how rural France actually is. And I just remember there was this, I was staying in a place just outside Angers in the north, and a local farmer asked if I'd come and help build a barn for one of his horses with them. I did, got my hands up, did all this stuff. But my payment wasn't money, it was excess from the farm. So they had goats. So every day for the next 2-3 months, I can't remember how long, I got milk and cheese delivered to my doorstep every morning. Beautiful milk and cheese as well. If I'd gone to the local market, I would have had to drive 15-20 kilometers. I'd have had to pay the premium for the people having the market stall, the rest of it. Instead, just turn up my doorstep every morning. I'd go and help him out anytime he wanted to top that up, buy simple things from the shops or what was in season. Life was much simpler, much richer. And I had the same thing in Thailand as well, actually. I don't know if you get the same thing.
I had that in Tuscany, but our needs are little anyways. And between friends and other people, because we have an NGO and we have to watch costs and stuff, we only have a vehicle when we need one. We only have, we don't have those base costs. And therefore, after the initial shock, after the initial panic, if you want, after a week, we were like, nothing has changed that much here. You brought up a major characteristic that I've found in freelancers, in independent workers, which is, it's not only that they're adaptable, is that we're willing to try, even though we don't know if it will work. There's this assumption that you have to try several things before you find one that works.
You don't know what good or perfect is going to look like sometimes until you've kind of veered off and you've gone that way and kind of fell into a bit of that kind of old habitual thinking, if you like, of sort of, I hate to call it normal life, but sort of, everything's got to be perfect, plotted out, you've got to go to school, you've got to go to university, you've got to do this job, go this way, get the mortgage for the kids, all the rest of it, that kind of pre-planning way. There's nothing wrong with pre-planning.
But do you think the children had an impact on that desire?
Of course it did, no, it wasn't even desire, it was unconscious kind of, but I noticed it in my writing work and I stopped writing at this point because I stopped enjoying it. I liked planning out my stuff and I was good at like a story, and actually that improved my stories. But I found I got too anxious about it. And I think you see this a lot in society, and what you're kind of talking about there is almost that anxiety that you can't do it because you'll fail. But actually the point of failure is to get to the good stuff, and you learn from failing. So that's probably the lesson I teach my kids more than anything. There's the good stuff is in the failure.
Because to me, epic failure is actually where you need to get to understand it's time to change, rethink, transform, whatever. The failure is in still trying to stay in the direction you're going. It's like skiing, it's like mountain climbing and everything. You don't fall, you're not trying. You're not.
I mean, when you were talking about bankruptcy earlier on, I had that experience. I went bankrupt in 2001, 2002. But I remember going through this process, and it's probably similar to what a lot of people are going through now. I put it off for a year because of the shame. But the shame comes from really the old workhouse mentality. I did a project on workhouses in the 90s, and it was fascinating to see because it was all about shaming people. It was all about, you've corrupted things, you're evil, you're this, you're that, the other. And it was something to threaten people with, so they stayed in debt and they stayed working, just keeping them in slavery effectively. One of the things I do still to this day is judge myself probably too harshly. And I think a lot of people do.
Come on. Especially creatives, we would not be pushing ourselves. We wouldn't be trying the things if we could accept what other people accept.
But there's a little quote which goes something like, if you realized that you weren't going to fail, what would you try? But I've been playing with this the last week. It's like, if you realize that nobody's going to judge you, what would you do? And that's quite a liberating little one to play with. So it's making me go, all right, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I do that. Suddenly it's opened up a little channel of things for me.
Funny you say that, because my immediate reaction is my creativity will disappear. So it's actually the trying to prevent failure that opens me to try different things I wouldn't otherwise. There's part of me that thinks the fear is necessary, but the judgment is maybe negative. I'm not sure,
Well, I don't know. You're making me reconsider. Well, not reconsider it, but you're right in terms of the creative thing and judgment as well, because sometimes you judge yourself to kind of push yourself a bit further, don't you? But I think we can go too far with it. So I think it's finding that balance. It's going, right, come on, you can do better than this. But at the same time, once you've done a bit, it's going, no, I'm going to put that down now. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to take it to bed with me. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that.
Yes.
So let's, how big can we be? One thing I have found is that I don't, coming back to the UK and been here for 10 years in a kind of fairly formulaic kind of middle class existence, I guess, is that I relish a bit of anxiety and danger, really, but a different kind. So
not
the normal day
challenge.
Yeah, challenge. So it's more the situations that you or I would put ourselves into where people would feel uncomfortable, which actually I feel very comfortable. And actually normal. Yeah, more comfortable than normal life. So for me, normal life it creates more anxiety than something probably more dangerous, more anxiety-inducing or more.
Look, you're in the middle of an expedition. You aren't thinking about the rent. You're not thinking about the next job. You're not thinking about any of that. Okay, and I think it's that bringing me to the moment. The absolute moment that I love about that. Victor Boyarsky, when we went with him to the North Pole, first time we met him was in a hotel conference room. He looked so small and so uncomfortable that I thought, oh my God, this guy's leading us to the North Pole. Next time we see him is on the ice pack. His hair's standing up in all directions. He is huge. And let's not even talk about the morning he woke us up to do an Arctic shower in bikini shorts and poured like water on his head. I know there's so much more to me and so much more I can do, give, whatever, that sometimes when I get into this normal life, I feel less, not like a superhero, but just less like me.
Yeah, less capable, less able, all those sorts. I totally get it. So
I don't feel special.
People at the time are going, why are you doing this? You're going to put yourself in harm's way. You're going to do that. You're going to do that. It's like, well, I can join the dots. I can see why I do this. It's obvious to me. And so because it's obvious to me, that's a skill that I've got. I should probably go and do it. And that's almost the thing.
That, I think, is exactly what I mean. It is that. It's the full use of whatever this organic instrument was born with and has developed. Is there anything that scares you or makes you nervous, either for yourself or for your culture, with lockdown ending?
With lockdown ending? It's more that it'll be business as usual. I think we have an amazing opportunity here to change things for the better. We have, this is a relatively minor hiccup on the humanities road, or bump. I'm mixing metaphors there, but a minor bump in humanities path, and we've got bigger things. We've got the environment, the greenhouse gases, overpopulation. We've got a belief in economic systems, which are basically, they're invented, but we're trapped by them. So that's my main concern, is that we just go back to business as usual. And the thing that coming back to the UK made me realise, and I realised it beforehand, but it really hammered it home, is that this country, being the second largest media market in the world, is really, really dangerously media-led. It's easy to persuade people to do what you want here.
That was so perfect. I'd really like to end there, because that, I think, is an important message that I feel, and I know you feel. I want to thank you, Frank. It's great to see you again. Hopefully someday in the near future we'll be somewhere interesting together.
Yeah, that'd be good, mate. That'd be very good.
It would be fun.
Rack it up, I got a bit of the bank to make me a safe house. Shake it up, she got her hands on her knees and she bringing the cake out. Smoke it up, I got some gas, some packs, I'm up in the greenhouse. Ball it up, I'm with the gang, we taking shots off the rebound.